Hi, I'm Dan Nelson. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to finish today by talking about feet and how to draw human feet. Not usually quite as hard as human hands because we don't have to draw feet that often. For that reason, much more difficult than hands because we don't look at feet. You can take that whichever way you want to. Let me just give you some very, very simple guidelines to start out with, the simplest rules. And again, I like reducing things to their barest essential minimum. Here's a good geometric rendering of feet. This is a foot viewed. This is a left foot viewed from the front. You may not recognize it yet, but I've basically reduced it to a trapezoid, a triangle, a diamond shape, and then the leg going up from there, just a tube. The toes typically go from largest to smallest, and the top of the foot is a very distinct plane. Sometimes you can see the phalange, what is it, metacarpals, metatarsals. You figure it out, you know what I mean. These bones that go down to the toes. And then the ankle bone on either side of that can be represented, just to get started, by this diamond shape. So there you have a very, very simple foot from the front. If you want to add toenails, you can do that. Let me now turn this foot around to the side and do an equally simple rendering of a foot from the side. I can give you a couple tricks that will help you get the size and dimensions of a foot fairly accurate. Trick number one is make sure that the heel extends out, backwards, back from, this is the Achilles tendon here, you got that? And calf up there, shin here. Make sure that when you draw the heel, that it extends out. And I find it convenient to draw it as a square, then come back and round it off so it's more realistic. But circles, rounded things are more complex, so start out by drawing it square. Now this is a simple arc or arch, so I draw that as a curve. I don't have to do that as a rectangle if you follow my drift. And then the front of the foot is dominated by this great wedge shape, this fanning out shape that you see when you take your shoe off and look straight down at your foot. And then, of course, the toes, in this case, all I'm seeing is the large toe. The great toe extends out from there. If you'll do that, then there's the ankle bone here. That's a pretty good rendering of, if I say so myself, that's an easy rendering of the side of a foot. Now, just to comment about what happens when you have to draw a foot in action or in 3 dimensions. There again, all of a sudden, it gets much more complicated. We should view the foot, at least from one more angle, shouldn't we, before we start talking about 3 dimensions. That is, of course, the typical foot from the bottom. There we go. So now we've seen a foot from the front, a foot from the side. How about a foot from the top? There's our leg bone going down. Here's this sort of fan-shaped bones often visible. And the toes take up a shape something like that. Sometimes the second toe is longer than the great toe, and sometimes it's smaller. Good enough. Now, let me do a foot in action, and we'll be out of here. What shape shall we take? What shape does a foot take when someone is about to, maybe standing in the starting blocks, about to run? By the way, we haven't even talked yet about clothing. Most of the time when we're drawing human figures, we're drawing clothed figures. You might say, well, then what's the point of learning all this about how to draw unclothed figures? Well, the answer is because if you can draw a figure with no clothes on, then you can draw a figure with clothes on. The opposite is not true. If you don't know what a figure looks like, then you won't be able to draw a figure even when it's clothed. The shoe, on the other hand, is especially helpful if you can draw a foot, because the shoe very much follows the shape of a foot with the addition of a sole, depending on how thick it is. And of course, different shoes have different shapes on them and so forth. That's the first piece of clothing I've drawn in this whole series. That will probably give you enough to go on. Let me see, what other kind of a action pose would there be? You see people with their feet crossed all the time. It's good to keep in mind that typically the toes of the foot are arched slightly. That is, they don't stick straight out from the end of the foot. They tend to curve over. The big toe is curved like that, not quite that much, but you get the idea. The small toes are curved so that the end of the foot tends to taper down toward the end. It doesn't just go out straight and cut off. The toes curve down. There's the ball of the foot, the arch of the foot, the heel, as seen from the side. And that's just one darn good looking shoe and darn good looking foot. I hope you enjoy that. Join me, get with me on DanNelsonArt.com. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.